Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Waiting to rise again.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the moment you've all been waiting for.
Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. Hunt Palmer coming to you from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Friday. It means we're brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp. Got Jacob Beck and Jordan Kitchens back there on the ones and twos. Fired up. You're closing out the work week with us. Hopefully that work week's already been closed out. You're on to the weekend. If not, we'll get you to the finish line here on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Preston Guy here in 15 minutes. I've already prepped Preston. I want to talk defensive ends with Preston. We always talk LSU football with Preston when he comes on Fridays. I think the defensive end position is one certainly worth talking about. I've written a couple of pieces on LouisianaSports.net about it, and so that's where we'll center our focus with Preston coming up. Certainly a monster weekend in the NFL that includes Jaden Daniels. It also includes Saints coaching candidates, and I think a lot of that clears up over the next 7 days after this week is in the rearview mirror for the NFL. I was at the first pitch banquet last night for LSU baseball. Got a couple stories from that last night, and big weekend in Southeastern Conference basketball as well. So loads to get to. Appreciate you hanging out with us. We'll start today like we start every day with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's opening drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
All right, let's get things started. I'm going to be completely candid. I'm not going to blow smoke. I'm not going to create a storyline that's not there. I'm going to be completely candid with you. Those first three SEC basketball games were disheartening for me. I think they were disheartening for most of the LSU fan base, if not all of the LSU fan base. Certainly, it was nice to get on track to win a game on Tuesday. And the parameters that we set out around Christmas still exist for this team. I think 7 to 8 wins very much puts you on the bubble or into the NCAA tournament. I just thought after those three losses, Vanderbilt, not a good team, comes into your arena and beats you. You go to Missouri, not overly competitive with that team. Ole Miss pulls away in the second half. It to me didn't seem realistic for LSU to get to 7 wins. Right now, it still doesn't feel realistic to me for LSU to get to 7 wins. I don't think this team is good enough. That's my opinion. But the beauty of it is they can prove that wrong. I didn't think last year's LSU team was good enough to win 4 league games. They won 9. It's going to play out, and we're going to watch. So you got my opinion. You know where I stand. And I'll tell you, I think it's amazingly unlikely that LSU goes to Tuscaloosa and wins or beats Auburn in the PMAC. I think both are amazingly unlikely. So unless you want to go to 1-6, Saturday's one you have to get. And if they win on Saturday to go to 2-5, sorry, well, that would be 2-5, assuming they lose 2. They would actually go to 2-3. We can start to have a little bit different conversation. You beat Arkansas on your home floor. You go to A&M and win, even if they don't have Wade Taylor, and we'll talk about that. It changes the conversation. But they're going to have to prove that to me first before I buy into it. Now, I look at this Texas A&M team. They're 13-4. They're 2-2 in league play. Credit to Buzz Williams. They played an awesome non-conference schedule. I don't know that I followed it day to day in the non-conference, but I started going a little bit deeper. This is an A&M team that played Houston on the road in the non-conference. They went to Orlando and played Central Florida in the non-conference. They played Oregon and Las Vegas. They actually lost all 3 of those games, but they did. They beat Ohio State. They beat Creighton. They beat Rutgers. They beat Wake Forest. They beat Texas Tech. They beat Purdue. Listen to how many Power 5 teams that is. Houston, Central Florida, Oregon, Ohio State, Creighton, Rutgers, Wake, Texas Tech, Purdue. That is 9 Power 5 non-conference games that Texas A&M played. Good on them. It went okay for them. You lost 3 of those. You were able to win 6 of them. That's a solid effort, I would say. In conference play, they started out by beating Texas in College Station, 80-60, dusted their longtime rivals. Then they went to Oklahoma, beat them by 2, started out 2-0. Since, played Bama in College Station, got beat by 6 points in a pretty good game that was high scoring, 94-88. Then they went to Rupp and they got smoked, 81-69. Okay. That's what they've done this year. They played a tough non-conference, got off to a good start in league play, lost a couple of tough games against good teams, and now they come back home to take on an LSU team that they will expect to beat, quite frankly. They've got an identity under Buzz Williams. There's no question about it. And even if you haven't watched them play this year, I bet you can tell me what that identity probably looks like. Not a lot of five-star recruits, not a lot of McDonald All-Americans, not a lot of first-round picks, but they play hard, they defend, they're tough, they're strong. They're all of those things that Buzz Williams always coaches. And it usually means you're a good basketball team. It usually means we don't see you in the second week of the NCAA tournament. They just usually don't have the skill required to make a run. And I would suggest this team probably doesn't with Wade Taylor. Without Wade Taylor, definitely does not. Wade Taylor is a huge piece to what they do. Last year, he set school records for three-point attempts, three-pointers made, points by a junior. He's a two-time first-team All-SEC player at Texas A&M. And he's been out for 3 games. He's got knee tightness. I watched the press conference from earlier this week with Buzz Williams. He was asked about when Wade Taylor could return. The answer was not real encouraging. So without him, you're missing 15.7 points per game, a 35% three-point shooter, a guy who shoots 90% from the free throw line. He leads the team in assists. If he doesn't play, A&M's not as good. It's just the way it is. But they are what they are with or without him in terms of their style of play. Their offensive efficiency is 90th in the country. That's not going to wow you. Their shooting percentage is the worst in the SEC. They're the worst shooting percentage team in the league. Do they dish out assists? No, because they don't make shots. They're 244th in the country in assists. Well, how do they score? How did they score 88 on Bama? How did they score 80 points against Oklahoma, 80 points against Texas? How do they do that? It's easy. One thing. They offensive rebound like crazy people. First in the nation in offensive rebounding percentage. First in the nation in offensive rebounds per game. And they're tough. They force teams into fouls. They're 17th in the country in creating fouls. They're 21st in the country in terms of the percentage of the points they get from the free throw line. They rebound, which draws fouls. They get to the free throw line. They don't shoot worth a flip. They don't get assists. They don't play up tempo. They rebound. And LSU has been atrocious on the defensive glass. Awful. In the 250s in the country in defensive rebounding. Just really bad. And that's something that LSU is going to have to do. It's the entire key to the game. This is a team in Texas A&M that had 23 offensive rebounds against Bama, 21 against Oregon and Creighton. But Kentucky held them off the offensive glass. They only got 11 offensive rebounds. How many points they score? 65. 65. That's the game. If you can keep Texas A&M off the offensive glass, which is far easier said than done, you can win this game. And it's not like there are a bunch of 7-foot towers in there. This is their front court. Pharrell Payne, 6'9", 250. Henry Coleman, 6'8", 250. Solomon Washington, 6'7", 220. Anderson Garcia, 6'7", 220. They're just relentless on the glass. That's just what they want to do. So when you're on defense for your LSU, you defend like they have. First shot defense, you have to get to the glass. Then what's the deal on offense? Well, here's some statistics on LSU that are concerning to say the very least to me, but it's just the reality of where LSU is at this point. Cam Carter has to kind of do it all. Like without him, they're just not very good. Listen to some of these numbers. It's not a one-time thing. It's a recurring thing. On Tuesday, he shot 47% from the floor and made all 10 of his free throws. He scored 27 points, and LSU scored 78. That's one of the good days. Last weekend in Oxford, he took 18 shots, so it wasn't like they went away from him, but he shot 39% from the floor and never shot a free throw. So he got to 16 points inefficiently. LSU scored 65. They weren't competitive. Against Missouri, on the road, Cam Carter, 5 of 15 from the floor. LSU scored 67 points. He's got to do it. Pittsburgh, you lost that game. At the Greenbrier, he scored 11 points. You scored 63. However, you go to Kansas State, you win that game, dominate that game from start to finish. Cam Carter shoots 54% from the floor, 50% from the three. LSU scored 76 points on the road and won. He is everything to this offense. Sears is going to get his shots up. They need him to make some threes. Damian Collins can chip in with his offensive rebounds and a couple of dunks. Maybe Mike Williams can hit a 3 or 2. Jai Bailey's probably going to go 4 of 6 with 2 free throws for 8 or 9 or 10 points. But nobody else on the floor can go for 25. They just don't have it. So Cam Carter has to do everything. And he's a good player. But it's kind of where you are offensively. So the 3 storylines for this game: Cam Carter get cooking on offense. You got to get on the defensive glass for your LSU. Prevent these guys from getting second shots. And then what does Wade Taylor do? Does he play or does he not? There will be an eligibility report released tonight, and we'll get a good feel for that. I've got a pregame story that'll be written on LouisianaSports.net coming up tomorrow morning. We'll see what the line is. I would guess A&M by 5 or 6 points would be my guess. Still a ranked team, but it's not the same team without Wade Taylor. I'll sing a slightly different tune on Monday about what this team is and what their capabilities are if they can go to College Station and win. Keep in mind, and this is a lot of stuff that doesn't matter, but it is what it is. Some of it does, actually. But like LSU, Tremont Waters goes over there in 2018, and he's throwing in 30-footers at the buzzer to beat them. And then LSU went back in 2019, a really good team, and they beat them by 15 points, just thumped them. Last year, LSU opened league play at Reed Arena against Texas A&M, and were very much underdogs in that game. A&M could not get to the offensive glass. LSU beat them by 15 points. Cruise control, start to finish. It was a stress-free victory there. And that was a Wade Taylor team. That was a team that did feature Anderson Garcia, that did feature Henry Coleman. And it was a Matt McMahon versus Bud Williams game. So, yeah, a lot of the characters have changed. Certainly, you don't have Jalen Cook in this game. You don't have Jordan Wright or Will Baker in this game. In this game, you've got Jordan Sears. You've got Cam Carter. It's a different team on both sides, but it's the same coaches, and LSU has had some good luck at Reed Arena. The same way Coleman Coliseum, even when Bama stunk, Coleman Coliseum was a house of horrors for LSU. Reed Arena's been hospitable to the Tigers. I know a lot of people, look, I was at the first pitch banquet for baseball last night. Trust me, I understand where a lot of people in this town are sitting right now. But if you can beat A&M, we can start to have a conversation, because then you would have 2 wins, and we're just trying to scrap to 7. I don't think next week's going to go very well. That's just the reality of it. If you don't win this one, I think the writing's pretty well on the wall. If you do, okay, we'll talk about it. It's a late game, 7:30. I'm a little bummed about it because that's when Jaden is playing the Lions, but I'll make do. We'll get both games watched in some way, shape, or form, and I'll certainly be hoping that LSU can find a way to go to College Station and get a victory over Buzz and the Ags. All right, our Friday show is brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. Foster and Jefferson. It's on government between Foster and Jefferson, I should say. They're online at corksfishandshrimp.com. Go check them out online. The entire menu is right there at your disposal. Looking for a po' boy on this Friday? Get on by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp. They bring you our Friday shows each and every week here on The Hunt Palmer Show. Preston Guy talking football when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years of redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closets. If you're looking for an opportunity to get out and meet David Duvall and see some of their capabilities, well, you can, because there's a home and remodeling show coming up. It's the 10th annual. It's coming up January 25th, so that's next Saturday and Sunday at Lamar Dixon in Gonzales. Get on by and see some of their fantastic work over there at the show. The show hours are 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Saturday and Sunday. Admission's only $6. Get in there and check it out. You'll see the tub to shower conversions that they can do. You can meet David, chat with him there about some of the capabilities that they have. You know, financing options are available, 0% for 18 months if you qualify. It's a great chance to get out and see and touch all the great work instead of just listening to me talk about it. I appreciate you listening to me talk about it, and I can tell you how great David and his team are at One Bath and Closets. You got an opportunity next Saturday to get out to Lamar Dixon and see for yourself. It's One Bath and Closets. You can check them out online at onebathandclosets.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
Reminder, I'll be out at Rouse's, Burbank and Lee, 3 to 5 this afternoon. I get off at 2:56. Call it 3:04. Call it 3:09. 3:09 to 5 o'clock is when I'll be at the Rouse's, Burbank and Lee. But if you're doing your weekend grocery shopping, coming out and see me, we'll be having some fun. Playing some Plinko. So you can win gift cards, hats, cups, shirts, whatever the case may be. You'll see the big van out there. Come see us at Rouse's, Burbank and Lee today. Preston Guy with us every single Friday on the Jim's Firearms Hotline talking some LSU football. Preston, how we doing?
All right. How's it going, man?
Going quite well. Let's talk a little pigskin here. I told you earlier today I wanted to talk about LSU's defensive ends. I thought LSU got good defensive end play this past year from Savion Jones and Braden Swinson. Those two guys move on. Kevin Peoples still here, and they kind of had to retool when Deshaun Womack decided to hit the portal and go to Ole Miss. So as you looked at LSU's defensive end play this past season, what did you see?
I thought it was good for LSU this year. I thought certainly there were times it could have improved, but I think it was greatly improved from what it was a year ago. I think a lot of guys didn't expect it to be as good as they were. In fact, at times that defensive line was a strength of the team, and that's just purely coaching because it's basically the same guys who were on that historically awful defense from the year before, and basically just improved coaching, improved their play. So that's a good sign for LSU's future because both those D-line coaches will be back next year. And frankly, I think they're retooled with a lot more talent this upcoming year than they were in 2024.
All right, let's talk about what they've got coming in. We'll talk about Gabriel Relaford as well and Dylan Carpenter as those guys are still here. But they go to the portal. They get Jamari Butler from Nebraska, Patrick Payton from Florida State, as well as Jack Pyburn from Florida. What do you see there?
Well, first off, I think Patrick Payton is your instant plug-and-play starter. I think he was one of the best players in the portal, regardless of position this year. He's going to be a guy who's going to be an instant impact player. You love to see that from Patrick Payton. That other DN spot's going to be interesting. You look at the film for Jack Pyburn, maybe his numbers don't pop out too much, around 50 tackles or so, a forced fumble here and there. But he plays that Jack linebacker role in that defense at Florida, which LSU doesn't have that spot. So he's kind of a tweener. Does LSU see him at linebacker or edge rusher? I think most people are pointing to him as an edge rusher. And I think between him and Gabriel Relaford, it'll be interesting to see which one of them grabs the starter spot. What I love about Jack Pyburn on film is he's aggressive. He takes on blocks. He's a physical player. And he's the kind of guy who's making plays without being the one recording the stat, which I think that's something that those unsung heroes, that's what LSU's really been missing in its defense for quite a while. So love what I got out of them. Of course, the kid out of Nebraska, Jamari Butler, he comes in having, played serviceable reps in Nebraska, about 24 tackles this last year. And I think he'll be the same kind of experience depth piece that you're looking for as you're trying to get a team that's poised to compete on bigger levels. You need more than just your starters. You need quality depth to compete.
Pyburn is interesting because I was listening to Matt Moscona's show back in December when he committed to LSU, and Matt had a guest from the Florida beat on. He said, this guy is just a crazy person, and I think every defense kind of needs that. And then you turn on the film, and you're like, yeah, that checks out. The guy looks like he's got a bit of a screw loose.
Yeah, no, he's exactly right. That little weeks in him. You know what I mean? Like just that. I don't know if I want to run into this guy on the wrong side of town one day. He might be a little crazy.
I look at
I love that, though.
I look at the game against Ole Miss when LSU got to Jackson Dart 6 times, and a lot of it was Swinson. But that game in the fourth quarter, the defense kind of took over for LSU and waited for the offense to make its plays. And I just feel like if you're going to be a great team and you're going to beat good teams, you're going to have to get back there and get to the quarterback. You mentioned that you feel good about Peyton doing it. Is there anybody else that you think could be a 7, 8, 9 sack guy?
Relaford showed you some flashes last year. Make no mistake, he's just a young player. And I would be excited to see what he develops into. I think it'd be a little early to expect Damian Shaklin as a true freshman, although he'll be here for spring camp, and that always helps. But Relaford and Pyburn, I could absolutely see them being guys who develop that. Pyburn's a guy who hasn't had his hand in the dirt playing true edge rusher yet. So I would be interested to see how that works out. I do think he'd be a good run stopper and bring a physical presence. Pretty certain about that. I'd have to see how his pass rush is with his hands in the dirt. So Relaford is probably the guy I would look to for that, but we'll definitely see. One of those two would be my candidate.
And then the natural progression is to go back just one level to Harold Perkins when he creeps up there and does what he does. We'll have this conversation now, and then we'll do it again in spring football, and then we'll do it in the summer for media days, and then we'll do it all fall camp. But, where does Harold Perkins fit in this discussion that we're having? Does he?
I don't know. He might be the first look at your star next year. We'll see, because he always grades out very high in coverage, and at star positions, he's kind of a tweener. He's a light linebacker, and it hadn't quite worked out for him yet at any position other than when he was a freshman, and they just said, go out there and rush the quarterback. It was very one-dimensional, and I think everybody can agree he's too talented to be a one-dimensional player like that. So that star position provides some. Certainly there's some interesting blitz packages you can dial up with it, but it's not a consistent, certainly not up the gut, being in the box, providing a presence.
This is something I get all the time. I'll see what your answer is, but people tell me, I don't care how the Indianapolis Colts or Baltimore Ravens feel about Harold Perkins. I'm trying to win games for LSU. He's awesome rushing the passer. Tell him to go rush the passer. What would you say to that?
I don't know that he's big enough to consistently do that at an edge rushing position. Now, if you want to just have him come in at third down as an outside linebacker and blitz on the edge, because that's what you did his freshman year, and you think that's all he's good for, you think that's all the talent he has, then go for it. I just don't think he's actually that great as a defensive end, as an edge rusher specifically. And then there's other roles that these positions do, like outside run contain. How does he handle 300-pound offensive tackles driving him backwards? Is he able to squat down and fight? We're talking about a guy who's about 215. So I don't think he has the measurables to truly play that position. I think if you really want to get great effort out of Harold Perkins, you got to find a position he can play every down on. You can't just use him as a situational player and think, yeah, we got the most out of him.
Preston, guys, our guest, tigerbait.com. You can find him all year round. You can find him on YouTube as well, talking LSU football. He's with us on Fridays. All right, National Final is on Friday. It's on Monday. We won't talk again before then, obviously. I imagine you've got a little bit of a vested interest in this one, at least from a social media perspective.
Yeah, I tell people, it's I would enjoy these games a lot more if the amount of online harassment and, attacks I had to deal with wasn't on the line here. But it is, and that's the career I've chosen. And frankly, I cannot complain because unlike most people in the world, I'm paid to talk about sports. So I probably need to suck it up and deal with it. But I'll say this. From a strictly analytical standpoint of this game and how it impacts LSU, you are left with more questions if Marcus Freeman's able to find a way to win this game and achieve something that Brian Kelly wasn't in 12 years. And it's going to be Brian Kelly's job to ultimately answer these questions because Brian Kelly turns around and wins a national championship next year. They're all resolved. But we have to ask questions. Why was Marcus Freeman able to win a national championship in 3 years when Brian Kelly wasn't able to do it in 12? Now if he loses it, we can say, well, Brian Kelly did that too. He made it to a national championship and two, playoff semifinal games as well. So certainly he's made it to this point, but winning that's where you have to start asking questions. Is the answer to that, well, no, it was just an easier year and things aligned. It was a crazy, funky year in college football. Is it that Marcus Freeman is that great of a coach and Brian Kelly may still be very good and good enough to win a championship, and Marcus Freeman was that next level? It could be a ton of factors, and football is a weird sport, but you have to ask the questions if Marcus Freeman wins this game. Now, that being said, I'm sure LSU fans would be a lot more confident and comfortable in what they have should Ohio State pull the win as it is favored to do.
I did not watch a ton of Riley Leonard football from September through Thanksgiving. I've watched more than I cared to over the last 6 weeks. I just find it hard to believe that guy is going to beat Ohio State. That to me seems unlikely. Is that where you are?
Yeah, I concur. Now, it's a tough, gritty style of football he plays. He runs, gets good yardage, doesn't turn the ball over. But I believe against Penn State, I think, what was it, either Penn State or Georgia, he had like 90 yards passing in that game. He's not a prolific passer. Yeah, Georgia. Okay, all right. So he's not like this hyper-prolific guy who's going to go out there and hang 400 yards. And you have to wonder, okay, if you're in a situation where you're down 10 points in the third quarter, is he the guy who's going to go out there and lead the game with his arm? I don't know that we've necessarily seen that out of Notre Dame this year. I am curious to see how he reacts, or is it just going to be that Notre Dame's defense continues to dominate and put him in positions where he can be safe and calculated with the ball? I'll be interested to see. I don't have a ton of faith in him being that guy to take over the game and pass for 250 if he absolutely needs to. I don't see it, and I don't see the defense being so good they shut out Ohio State the way it's playing right now.
You give Jaden a chance in Detroit tomorrow night?
Yes. But that's probably the best team you're going to face in this playoff. I mean, but that's as tough as a matchup as you can ask. But,
yeah.
Jaden Daniels is a freak, and he's being efficient at levels we've rarely seen out of rookies. And if Jaden Daniels goes out there and pops off and has a 500 total yard game with 5 touchdowns, am I really going to be shocked? Are you going to be that shocked? I mean, we've seen just insane things, but Detroit's the better football team.
I think so, too. Enjoy the football this weekend. We'll talk next week, Preston. Thanks.
All right. Hunt, see you soon.
Preston Guy, tigerbait.com is where you can find him. And you can find him on Twitter, whether Notre Dame wins or loses on Monday, because he's sparring with the Irish and has been since Brian Kelly took this job 3 years ago. We got lots to do over the next 90 minutes. When we come back, we will chat about the NFL playoffs to come, including Jaden Daniels against those Detroit Lions. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Beck, you can open your mic during this live read. Do you have electricity at the moment?
I do.
Wow, amazing stuff. Did you have it yesterday?
Not for about 5 hours.
That's inconvenient at the very, very best, just negligent at the worst. Boudreaux's Electric can make you not like Beck because you would have electricity. You would never lose electricity like the Becks, who have not called Boudreaux's Electrical to this point yet. That's okay. I think they can still make that happen in the coming days. You can do it today. 985-397-1562, 225-300-9389. Those are the 2 phone numbers. Or you can do the easy way. Go online to boudreauxelectrical.com. Give yourself the peace of mind to know the power is not going to go out on you. Every single Generac home standby generator that you purchase from Boudreaux's Electrical comes with a 7 to 10-year warranty, and a full-time employee is going to do that installation, not somebody they just contract out to go get the job done. Find them online at boudreauxelectrical.com. That's my friends at Boudreaux's Electric.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
All right, I was at the first pitch banquet last night. Chatted with Dylan Cruz, Trey Morgan, Josh Pearson, Shay Shores, Jared Jones, and Gavin Guidry, along with Jay Johnson. Got some stories from that I'll get to at the end of this hour. But NFL playoffs, divisional round coming up tomorrow. Starts at 3:30 in the typical Texans time slot. They'll occupy the Saturday afternoon slate. But there are 4 games, and it should be an incredible weekend of NFL football to come. Wanted to give some thoughts on all those games I mentioned. Saturday at 3:30, the Chiefs will host the Texans, the 1 seed versus the 4 seed. Chiefs are 8-point favorite in this game. And we talked about the Chiefs a lot this year and just how they've kind of appeared to scrape by, but scrape by every week. It has been an anomaly. A lot of times when you get these elite teams, they just dominate more weeks than not. And the Chiefs really didn't. And I think one of the statistics that tells their story really well is that they were the best team in the NFL on third down. They converted 48.5%. And you think of third down offense as not necessarily being all that sustainable because you're walking a high wire far too often, but they've been awesome all year. The Texans are one of the NFL's best on third down, only giving up 35.9%. I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Derek Stingley is one of the best corners in the NFL and has been a big piece to that. Texans defense also features Will Anderson, who had 11 sacks and 30 pressures this year. I think personally that Will Anderson is the key to this game. If Will Anderson can put pressure on the Chiefs' offensive line and get back there towards Mahomes and affect him early, I think that's the best chance that the Texans have to win this game. Here's a nugget from ESPN.com that I found really, really interesting. You're talking about an officiating crew that will referee this game in Kansas City that led the NFL in holding calls. The Chiefs had the second most holding calls in the NFL this year. If Will Anderson and company can get the Chiefs behind the chains with holding calls and or sacks, I think they've got a chance to hold up on third down, and I think that the Texans can go to Arrowhead and win the game. I'm not going to pick them to win the game. I absolutely like them with 8 points. I love the Texans with 8 points in this game. I'll take the Chiefs to win it, but inside that 8. Then the nightcap, the one that certainly we'll be talking about down here, is the Commanders, the 6th seed in the NFC, at the Lions, the number 1 seed in the NFC. Jaden Daniels' QBR on 3rd and 4th down this year is 93.5. He threw 12 touchdowns against 2 interceptions on 3rd and 4th down this year. How about this on 4th down? Now, Dan Quinn's been really aggressive on 4th down. Washington has often gone for it on 4th downs. They did twice in that game last weekend when they could have kicked field goals to draw within 1. There's a reason, I guess, he's so aggressive. On 4th downs, Jaden Daniels this year is 8 for 8 with 2 touchdowns and 7 first downs. That's incredible stuff. He has not thrown an incompletion. Unbelievable. The Lions lead the NFL in yards after the catch on the other side of the ball. However, the Commanders are the best at not allowing run after the catch. That's going to be a huge key in this game as Jared Goff gets it out to those weapons, St. Brown and all those guys. And then they are generally making plays after that. Certainly Jahmyr Gibbs is explosive as anybody in the sport. The Commanders have been good at limiting that, at tackling, getting guys to the ground. This over-under is 55.5 in this game. That's the highest in a playoff game since the Bucs-Chiefs Super Bowl a few years back. So they expect this game to be up and down. And I think that if you look at the Lions, they've been a high-scoring team that has given up a lot of points and yards because they've been so hurt. And the Commanders have a great quarterback. So I don't personally think that Washington is ready to go win this game. I hope I'm wrong. I'll be keeping an eye on this as LSU's playing Texas A&M in basketball on Saturday night. But I think there are going to be quite a few people that do pick them because of 5. He's won that many people over at the back end of last year, and then certainly with what he's done in his first year in the NFL. I'll take the Lions. I think the number here, I think I saw is 5. No, that's not right. I didn't write it down. I had them as a 1 seed. Beck, pull up the number there.
It is 9.5.
9.5. Yeah, I knew it was closer to 10. I saw that 5 and went, that's not the right number. So yeah, that's a lot, and I wouldn't even be comfortable taking the Commanders with the points, quite frankly. I'm hopeful, but I just think the Lions are just a better football team right now than Washington is. So I'll take the Lions in that game. Then Sunday, you got a pair of matchups. The Rams are at the Eagles. The Rams are the 4 seed, the Eagles the 2 seed. Philly is a 6-point favorite in this game. They played this game previously, and it didn't go so hot for the Rams. They gave up 314 rushing yards to Philadelphia. Saquon had 255 of them. My fantasy team, Baton Rouge's Eeyore, we appreciated that very much, with Saquon's probably like 50 points in that game. I don't imagine that's going to happen again. It's never happened in league history where a running back ran for 200 against a team and then ran for 200 again in the playoffs against them. I would bet against Saquon going over 2 bills, but I still think that the Eagles are going to run the ball like crazy, and they need to, because the Rams pass rush really got after Sam Darnold back on Monday. 8 Rams had at least half a sack against the Vikings on Monday. That's the most in the playoffs since they started keeping track in 1982. But you can't rush the passer if you're the Rams, if you can't stop Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts from running the ball. So clearly that's going to be object number 1 for the Eagles, and clearly I think that's very much the key to the game. I kind of like the Rams to go to Philly and win. It's an odd feeling I have. I like their coach a ton. Stafford is not going to be shook. It's going to be chilly up there, but I think the Rams may be primed for a little bit of an upset there if they can slow down the Eagles running the ball. And then the one everybody wants to watch on Sunday evening, the Ravens at the Bills up in Orchard Park. The Bills are catching a point in this game, and that's noteworthy. It's the first time the Bills have been a home dog in 43 games. They have not been a home dog since 2020. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are superstars. They're the top 2 rushing quarterbacks in NFL playoff history. No quarterback has run for more yards than Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson in the history of the playoffs. Now, Derrick Henry ran for 199 on Buffalo in Week 4. That was a game back in Baltimore, and Baltimore destroyed Buffalo in that game. I think that I would expect the Bills to put up a little bit bigger fight defensively than let Derrick Henry essentially go for 200 yards. This is a crazy stat to me on two different levels. One, I think it's crazy that both of these teams were plus 157 in the regular season. They had the exact same point differential. That's crazy to me. What's even crazier is that this has happened 6 other times that teams have met in the playoffs with the same regular season point differential. Last time was the Super Bowl between the Eagles and Patriots back in the 2017 season in 2018 Super Bowl. I like the Ravens to go on the road and win this. I like both road teams in Sunday's games, and I think I give the Texans a fighting chance as well. So while the home teams have traditionally dominated this round, I'm not necessarily in that boat this weekend. I want to get y'all's thoughts on it here. Back, you're looking at this board. What's got your eye? Jordan, I'm coming to you next.
I think I'm with you on the Texans. The Chiefs just haven't shown that they are going to score a lot of points this season. And the Texans' defense is pretty good. So if it's I think it'll be a low-scoring game, and I think the Texans can maybe get, if they gets into like a field goal situation, then they can run away with this one and get it and win it by a field goal. I think it's possible because the Chiefs just haven't really, they've blown out some people, but it hasn't been by, they haven't been outscored. It hasn't been often and hasn't been outscoring a lot of people. So I think that one is going to be close. I would probably take the Texans there on the spread on that one. And
I love the Texans plus the 8. Love them.
Yeah, that's really, I really like that too. And then the Ravens and the Bills, man, of course, that the game is in Orchard Park, so it's going to be freezing. I don't know if it's going to be snowing or not, but
probably
either way, and that will have a big part of that game. But I still like the Bills. I've liked them since the beginning of the season.
Riding with the Bills.
It's been one of the few things that I've been right about this year. But so far, yeah, Vanderbilt. I was right about Vanderbilt. I'll take that one. But I like the Bills in that one. And maybe whoever wins that game wins the MVP. I don't know. We'll see. But other than that, I'm with the Lions. I think win by 2 scores, and then I think the Eagles as well. The Rams aren't very good.
All right, I kind of like the Rams going up there. Jordan, if you could only watch one game this weekend, what would it be?
If I only could watch one, it's easily Lamar Jackson versus Josh Allen.
I think so.
But my upset of the week is definitely going Rams over Eagles. I like the Rams a lot. I like Matt Stafford, Nakua, Cooper Kupp, cooking, young defense.
I like McVay. That's who.
I like McVay too. Yes.
He was awesome in the game against the Vikings. I thought they looked great in that game, and I think he's such a good coach. They're in the middle of kind of reshuffling the deck after they went for it all with that Super Bowl, and now obviously with Aaron Donald retiring, and they've had to change some things that they're doing. But he's a really, really good coach. It's one of those deals where you don't mind a couple of lower seasons because you know that you've got the right guy. You just got to retool the roster, and I think they've done that. I like. The Eagles have been great this year. They've been awesome.
Shaky. I don't know what it is about them. I don't know if it's the Jalen Hurts not passing offense.
If Saquon Barkley runs for 185 and 3 touchdowns, they're gonna win.
Yeah.
But do the Rams have enough to stand there and stop him? Which my fantasy team was hoping no, but those guys are toast. So now it's time to watch real football, and I'm curious to see how that goes. So should be an awesome weekend in the NFL. We'll certainly be watching. We'll react to it all coming up on Monday's show. All right, last night we were at the Crown Plaza for the first pitch banquet. Some baseball thoughts when we come back.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com. Every car on the lot is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. They're on Airline, near Piku, across from Women's Hospital. Get on by the facility. It really was so impressive to me. I have been in a lot of car dealerships and on a lot of service aisles because in the insurance business, I worked with auto dealers. And so most of the time you walk into a service aisle and you're like, ugh. You walk into a car dealership, it's kind of sterile. You kind of know what you're getting. This is a first-class experience. It feels like you're in a 4-star hotel when you walk in there. They've got the rock waterfall in there. The ambiance, the Wi-Fi is fantastic. They got the big coffee machine and all the snacks laid out. Their staff is so hospitable. You're going to feel like a guest there, not a customer. And that goes for if you're there to potentially purchase a vehicle or if you buy a vehicle and you're there for the maintenance, which, by the way, is complimentary for 3 years for everyone that buys a Genesis at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Get on by and check it out for yourself. Don't take my word for it. If you're in the market for a new vehicle, you're probably going to be on Airline Highway. Get on by at Genesis of Baton Rouge and just see. Because when you think luxury, you should think Genesis. When you think Genesis of Baton Rouge. Check them out online, genesisofbatonrouge.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp.
Wrapping up hour number 1 here on this Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Corks, Cajun Fried Fish and Shrimp, Jumbo Gulf Shrimp, crispy fried catfish, those crispy shoestring fries as well. Got the honey butter rolls, beignet bites. Get on by Government between Foster and Jefferson. Check out the menu, corksfishandshrimp.com. Looking for a po' boy. No better spot in Baton Rouge for a po' boy than Corks. Big old fried shrimp po' boy or delicious catfish po' boy. They got you covered over there at Corks. They bring you our Friday shows each and every week. You know, it's easy to go to the box in June. It's easy to turn on the TV in May when you're coming down the stretch and see the passion that Baton Rouge and this state have for LSU baseball. I've had that almost my entire life, and certainly when I moved down here in 2006, that even grew deeper, getting to go to every single game down here. And y'all know how I'm wired. I love baseball. The LSU baseball program is my favorite team in the world. But it's different instances that are outside the box where I truly get an appreciation for just how much this place loves baseball. It's like I'm going to go to Rouse's today, and I doubt anyone asks me about the football team. I will get 4 people that will come up to me over the course of the 2 hours I'm there that want to hear about the baseball team. And that always amazes me. I can do a Twitter Ask Me Anything in August. Who's going to be the weekend rotation? Almost always pops up. And that always amazes me. And nights like last night more reinforce that. The ballroom at the Crown Plaza last night was completely full for the first pitch banquet. Completely full. To eat some chicken breasts and green beans and watch a highlight video on the screen, hear Jay Johnson talk for 10 minutes, hear a Q&A with Dylan Cruz and Trey Morgan for the current players, get a baseball sign for the kiddo, and just like be around a bunch of people in purple and gold. That event, what I watched last night, doesn't really happen many places. I'm certain they couldn't do it in Gainesville. I'm confident they couldn't do it in Auburn. I think they could do it in College Station. I think they could do it in Starkville. Maybe. Those are smaller towns. But last night was incredible. And one of the things I took away from it, Jay Johnson spoke to the crowd. And this is not like inside information. This was a public banquet we were at. His speech took a little bit of a different tone last night, and one that was not surprising at all, but I noticed. He talked about the team a little bit, but usually he goes through kind of what he's talked to the team about and what you can expect in terms of style of play and all that kind of stuff. Last night, he made sure to let those people know that were in that number, hey, we need you. Because if you want to continue to be at the top of this sport and to have great players come through, it can't just be the staff going out there and telling them how great LSU is at baseball. They need help financially to make it happen. And I know that doesn't make a lot of people feel awesome. That's just the way some people are wired. I don't want to talk about that. It doesn't make it false. It's the reality. And it was interesting to hear Jay. He certainly wasn't begging or pleading. He was just reinforcing like, hey, if you want this thing to hum, I can do it, but we need your help. And he was appreciative of the help that they've gotten, and he feels really comfortable with where the program is right now. But it was interesting to kind of hear that. I'll add one anecdote. Those of you that have walked up to the box right near home plate on the first base side, you've seen some reserved parking spots. Jay Johnson's got one, Skip Burtman's got one, Scott Woodward's got one, and there's another one that came open in July. And they auctioned it off last night. And there was a bidding war. But and it got up to $18,000 for this parking spot for the season. And then someone ran up to Ronnie Rance and said, hey, we can make two. There were two bidding back and forth up to $18,000. So they got a separate parking spot and each paid $18,000 for this parking spot. They raised $36,000 for two parking spots, which I thought was awesome. And Jay Johnson got on the mic and said, look, I've got one of those reserve spots. If somebody else wants it for $18K, I'll Uber to the games. And that's kind of where we are at this point. But that part was funny. I got the mic after that and I said, look, I've done post-game shows for Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. I've done post-game shows for Jaden Daniels. I've done post-game show from the national championship game. I've never grabbed a microphone after a $36,000 parking spot was auctioned off. That was a new one for me. But here we were last night in January in the Crowne Plaza. This is a town that's buzzing for this baseball season. We're certainly going to start talking about it. They will open their practice officially coming up a week from today, Friday of next week. Jay Johnson will have a Q&A with the media. Some players will talk after that, and then they'll have their first practice and first scrimmage. Hopefully the freezing cold weather that's coming early next week is out of there. They can get out in the field and get some work done. But we've gotten to practice. We're a week out from there, and then you're talking about 4 weeks essentially from getting things started against Omaha, Nebraska, which is a fitting team to play based on starting the season where you want to finish the season. We'll start talking about all that coming up here next week. All right, we got one more hour to go. You're listening to a Friday edition right here of The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.